Welcome to the SaaS Factor. Hi, Kelly.
Hey, Sarah. And thank you, everyone, for coming back for some more. And if this is the first time you're hearing of us, we do have one other episode out there that we did a little intro in. So I encourage you to jump over there and learn a little bit more of what we're doing here.
Absolutely.
So today we wanted to talk about the two worlds of benefits and tech colliding because as most of you all, I'd imagine, know who are listening, it's two completely separate languages. The benefit world has one language, tech has another language. So sometimes that communication can be difficult when you're trying to work together, work with all of the parties involved. I know my first couple of weeks at Medify, I remember sitting in these meetings with data and engineering. And as someone who came from the benefit space, I had no idea what they were talking about. And I remember just smiling and nodding and being like, you'll figure it out. I'm sure you'll figure it out. But they were saying things like EDI feeds in SFTP in 834 files. And I was like, oh boy, am I ever going to know what's happening? As well as every system under the sun had a different acronym. And I was just hoping that no one else could tell how panicking I was inside. But happy to report now, I know what each of those things are. But it really is so different on the language front.
Absolutely. When I started in tech, I just assumed that number one, engineers are superheroes because they are. And then number two, if you were an engineer, you could do anything tech related, right? Like, okay, so you can help me with this and you're IT. And then you build stuff and then you fix stuff and then you QA stuff. No, it doesn't really work like that. You have the front end and then you have the back end. And, oftentimes teams will confuse customer success for being the side end, right? But there are not any side end engineers. And so, yeah, it has been something to, wrap your arms around and get familiar with the terminology. But the same thing with benefits. When I started in benefits, I was hearing the term STDs used around the office. And I was thinking, oh, STDs, they're just kind of openly talking about that. No, they're talking about short-term disability. I was also hearing the term like census. And so in advertising, we would use the census to really get a pulse on demographics and areas, communication formulas and strategy. And so I assumed, well, they're using that in the benefits space as well. No, a census is a file of everyone who's employed at a company. And so that was something different. But also in benefits, you have a lot of acronyms as well. SPDs, SBCs. There's a lot of different acronyms that are used across benefits space as well.
It really is so completely different. In my naivety, I had no idea that there were engineers that did data and tech. That was news to me, just not being in that space. Every time I thought of an engineer, I thought of my brother-in-law who works in civil engineering. So really, really wild. The more you know and the more you
Yeah.
learn. One of those things that I think is so important on the customer success side that I've been on is being that mediator, really honestly being a translator, not being fluent in both because I'm definitely not claiming to understand all of the engineering and data world, but understanding and bridging those gaps. So when you have both parties at the table, when someone is speaking in the SPDs and SBCs and STDs, all the S's and D's, that it's translating correctly and understanding how all of that fits together with the tech, translating correctly over to engineering and data, and vice versa, because it really is. We're all experts in our areas, but when we become really powerful is when we can put it all together.
Yeah. Yeah. And leverage the teams. And so, those are a couple different teams, but it extends beyond that, right? Because we have our benefits teams, our HR partners that we're working with, our broker partners. And so they're implementing anything from, 10 to 20 different point solutions in a plan design, and that renews each year. And so it's just ensuring that all of those pieces are plugged in, that you have the appropriate strategy, the initiatives in place, the communication formulas that really resonate with members and different demographics, and the styles that continue to change, leveraging data and leveraging tech to ensure that those initiatives and strategies are executed. And so, yeah, it's a lot of that communication to your point, Kelly.
It is. And we talked about the HR broker team, kind of that benefits heavy team. And then we talk about the data and engineering, very tech heavy. And then we have this whole other party, the actual end user, the members that are using the tech. And everyone in that bucket kind of has a different, I guess, literacy of both, if you will.
And it's about the experience, right? And just us being that strategic partner to bridge the gap, not only between the two different worlds, but also between the worlds that plan members live, right? And so they're not familiar with either of the terminology, vocabulary, and everything. And so it's just so important, to your point, just to have that clear communication with strategies, just to be able to ensure the success of any sort of goals and any sort of initiatives that groups have. And so, yeah, definitely a vital part.
Of course. And I think one of the things that makes a good customer success team as well as sales team in those kind of people facing roles is knowing how to communicate with people, and not only in their languages, but in their communication styles. I know that we've learned a lot about that over the last few years, just how people like to be communicated to, and when to go into the nitty gritty and when to keep it high level. And I find that when you've got the data people on one side talking about the ins and outs and the coding pieces, and then you have the other people talking about the plan designs, it's so interesting to try and figure out where do we need to find that happy medium.
Yeah, for sure.
So I commend all the marketing teams out there that are using those engagement strategies, building all of the texts and the emails and all of that, because it really is a unique melting pot of truly communication. I think we can all agree that that's probably the most important thing when you're working in these spaces and working with people.
Absolutely. And so while we kind of want to keep it informative, we also want to keep it fun. And so we are going to transition over to
Tea time. Okay. Now is one of our favorite segments, tea time. It is fourth quarter, so feel free. We know what it's like to maybe replace that tea or coffee every now and then with some wine.
After working hours.
All right, Sarah, spill some tea.
All right. So the tea I have is actually on myself. And I suffer from migraines. Kelly knows this about me, and she had recommended a TMJ treatment with injectables. And so there's a treatment that you can get. I've had it done before also, just on my neck and, below my scalp. And it didn't work, unfortunately, but I am a clincher. And so I was hopeful that the TMJ injectables would help. It did. And so I went back for another treatment. And while I was there, the doctor had mentioned, hey, we also have a treatment for RBF. We can help you with that. So
For those of you,
I was caught off guard. I'm like, oh, well, I do have RBF, and I know that I have that. I can come across as, when I'm just really thinking, people think that, I just got the look on my face like the stinky eye or something. And really it's just me thinking with my RBF. And so I thought, you know what? Sure, let's go ahead. I mean, if you can fix that, first impressions mean everything. Let's try it.
For anyone who doesn't know what RBF may stand for, it is resting face. And you can fill in the B with whatever you think it is. And hard to believe that Smiley Sarah over here may have RBF, but do tell.
Well, shortly after, I started to notice that whatever that procedure was, it caused me to drool without feeling the drool that comes out of my mouth. So just spill a little tea about myself. If ever you are offered on a little, touch up for your RBF while you are at the doctor's office, if you are getting any sort of injectables, especially for the TMJ, you may want to pass on that unless you're okay with the occasional drool during meetings, when you're at a restaurant, that sort of thing. And so just wanted to spill that little embarrassing note on myself.
We've been talking about a lot of acronyms, way to round it out with an acronym.
Hey, we appreciate everyone watching this segment. We're going to be dropping some more soon. We're going to have some guests on. And again, we're going to keep it informative, but we're also going to make it fun. So have a great week and good luck in Q4. We're all in this together.
Cheers.
See ya.